Hi, my name is Jocelyn. Could you introduce yourself, like your name and what you do here?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Meredith Denville. I am the new director of the EI zone. So Directora de la Zona de Emprendimiento Innovador, if we want to do the long Spanish version. But I am new. I started like 2 weeks ago.
So. Okay. So the first idea that we have is about a machine that we could put in supermarkets, the mall, parking lots, etc. And that machine will receive, plastic, like plastic bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And for maybe 20 bottles that you put in there, it will give you an incentive. It could be money or maybe a coupon. So this idea is about recycling.
Okay.
And I have a few questions.
Sure.
The first one is, how viable do you think this idea is?
I do think the project's viable. I've already seen something like this in France. So it started in the north and now it's in Paris. So they have machines in supermarkets in different places throughout the city. They essentially take the plastic and then they sell the plastic that they take. Of course, that's the plan, right? And then for every 20th bottle or every X, there are incentives, and you can either receive, I believe, coupons or vouchers or some sort of a prize or incentive.
Okay. What's the name of this company?
The name is Lemon Tree, so Lemon, like lemon, and TRI, so Lemon Tree.
Okay. The second one is, what resources do you think are essential for this idea?
First, you're going to have to create the machine, right? And so you're going to need to have some coders, some people that are able to help you work with your machine. The machines are not cheap. I believe they're like 500, like como 50,000. I'm just guessing from what I learned from the people there. But if you want to have one and then you want to start, but you also need to take into consideration when there are updates in technology, so you don't want to have like an old machine and it will not go for years and years. So to start, you need some kind of a prototype of the machine, and then placing where is it going to go.
Okay, so since it's going to be really expensive, how do you think we could get the resources or convince the sponsors to work with us?
The first sponsors that I would look at might be Danone, okay, that's French, but Nestle, okay, also French, more Swiss French, but I know that Nestle has a presence here in Puebla, so I would be looking for companies that sell their plastic waters, right? Or Ciel or FEMSA or anything like that, so then they could work with you, because it would be good for their company if there's another company that is putting the plastic they're selling to good use.
Okay. And do you think the government would want to be involved in this idea?
A government should be want to be involved, right? I don't know if this government, I don't know about the funding for kind of environmental standards, but I think it would be a good idea to always start small. So maybe even starting with just the government of Puebla or the Municipalidad de como Puebla, no? Like something small.
Okay, and what are the main challenges that you think we will face if we go on with CP?
Initial funding, I think also creating the prototype of the machine could be, you could make a simple first version.
Okay.
But I think if you find somebody who's able to build the machine with you, the next will be where do you put it, right?
Okay.
So if finding the foot traffic of where, and then how will you collect the plastic that is taken from the machine?
Okay.
You will need infrastructure to have somebody, maybe in a bicycle or a car, collect what is, and then compressing all of the bottles. So you're gonna get a bunch of bottles, but you need your machine to like put them in a pallet, no? And then where do you sell them? So it's kind of like, when you get it, how do you organize it? How do you have it collected? And then how are you going to distribute it? And how much money will you make when you deliver this to the people that buy your plastic? So seeing whether your cost to pay for the machine, does that equal what you will get at the end, just to keep your budget going.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what changes would you make to this idea?
No, I like the idea a lot. I think it's very good. So there are a lot of questions. So where would the machine go? The locations, and how would you market it? But the most important thing I think here is your alliances, your partnerships, your sponsors. So it's like, if you can get big companies, their names to help you, then it will be a lot easier than if it's just like, we all know it's good to recycle. Hey guys, like it's good to recycle, go green. Okay, so what can we do about it? And then also, who's buying the water bottles, you need to do your market research, right?
Yeah.
So that can be a little tricky, but there's a lot of homework to be done. But I've seen this before. So look up lemon tree, and I know that it does work. And the company in France has many machines, and they're at gyms. They're at grocery stores, because gyms, everybody gets a bottle of water, right? So really identifying where it should go, and you want to put this machine where it's getting so much plastic,
Okay.
so you're making money.
Yeah.
Not and helping the world.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so the second idea that we have is about a jicara or a bullet,
Okay.
and we plan to encourage the use of these like ecologic recipients to drink water instead of, I don't know, buying more plastic bottles or something like that. So we want to know if you think how viable do you think this idea is?
I think a lot of it depends on who do you want to be your market, because I already know that like Yetis and reusable water bottles like this, like we now know it's good to use your own water bottle, your own bag for the supermarket. I don't know if it's a trend that would pick up unless you market it as like an artisanal.
Yeah.
It depends who's your
A
market.
national product.
Do you want to go to Cholula and sell it as like product of Mexico? Maybe.
Okay.
I have seen these a lot in the US. Instead of water bottles, they use them for like bird houses.
Okay.
So there are several uses that you can use this product for. So I almost think it would be more of like a folklore item, like something that you would sell as like a, in the same place you would go for starapes and talavera,
Okay.
in that kind of.
Yeah.
So identification of your market, who you would sell this to me would be the largest challenge.
Okay. Okay. What resources do you think are essential for this idea?
You need to make a most viable product, like an initial prototype, no? So your resources, which would be quite minimal, it would not be as expensive as the water bottle machine, but you would have to buy some of these jicaras. You would have to buy some, and then you're looking to, or what you could do is do a trial on like Etsy. Are you familiar with Etsy? Etsy is a website we use in the US. A lot of people who make their own like arts and crafts sell there, and you function as like an eBay. You function as your own little online store,
Okay.
and then I've ordered custom things. Oh, I would like this, but in this color. And then the artist, like you, would make it, and then you would send it.
Yeah, we want the jicaras to be like personalized. You can have the option, I don't know, if you want a pink, then we could make it pink.
Mhm.
And it's really not that expensive because it will be like produced here in Mexico. It's
Mhm.
very common in the north. So,
Okay. Yeah, I think you could start out small, and maybe you would make 5.
yeah.
And then if somebody wants, it's easy to see what do people like about your product. They give you feedback, and then you can amend your product to fit what they like. But the thing is, the water bottle thing, if you need to make sure it works because you're only making one.
Yeah.
And this you can kind of change as you go, which is a good thing, no?
Yeah. What are the main challenges you think we're gonna face?
Demand. You really have to get your marketing out there and let the right population know what you produce and why they need it.
Okay.
Because these things are kind of a weird shape, right? Sort of,
Yeah.
no? So like this, I know will fit in like a cup holder. This I know is a cup. Those things, they're cool. They're really awesome. But it's like, where will I put it?
Not very fun.
People our age, or okay, I'm older, but like people in our generation have less space in their house, right? Like, so the space for me is kind of a concern unless you're going to appeal to like older buyers.
Okay.
People who are younger, we have studio apartments, we're changing countries like all the time. Am I gonna take my jicara? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure.
Okay. What materials do you think we could use?
Obviously, you're gonna have to buy a bunch of those things. Paint, of course, and then I suppose that because they're going to be personalized, you're going to be sending them out by mail. One. So you're going to need all of the shipping supplies, the relationship with DHL. Prepare yourselves to ship internationally because it's a product of Mexico. I assume that you will have some interest from people outside of the country. So be prepared for some export action.
Okay, and maybe the production will not be that expensive, but like you say, the shipping and all of that would be very expensive.
Those at the border.
Yeah.
Then they're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Border Patrol, get ready.
So what do you think? How do you think we can get the resources or the sponsors for this thing?
I think that you will probably mostly have to self-fund and look at FFF, family, friends, and the other F is fools, but like I don't mean that, but I just learned this in school one time. I would say for something like this, it should probably be the majority self-funded, unless you find, because I don't know what big names who have funding would be like, oh yeah, I can give maybe art, like pro art groups or like people who work with like kind of, if you can produce it in more like Oaxaca or indigenous communities,
Yeah.
where you can show that a percentage of the money you make goes to support their initiatives, then maybe you can get somebody on board with this.
Okay.
But you could also look at other people who do this kind of crafts, handicrafts. Where did they get their money to start? But I think amongst yourselves, you can probably self-fund your first 5 and see what money you make, and then is it feasible to continue?
Okay. What changes would you make?
I don't know. My curiosity lies in like, is there the demand for this product? I love that it's sustainable. I love that it's a natural ingredient. But the tricky thing is you need to show how it applies. If you want to sell it to me, how does it apply to my life? Yes, I'm a big water drinker, but to have something that's kind of a different shape and doesn't really fit and carry with me easily, perhaps you could use this material but to make a different product.
Okay. To make it
Something
more
for the
functional.
home, to stay in the home. It's not a very transportable size
Okay.
because it won't easily fit in like a backpack.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird, right, to fit into my bag or something like that. In a water bottle, we very much need it
Yeah.
to be easy to take on the go.
Okay.
So maybe something else. Maybe that's why people do birdhouses. Maybe that's why the Goodingos make birdhouses. I've seen them there. So okay.
Okay. Yeah. So the last one is about clothing containers
Okay.
in airports and maybe bus stations. We plan to put something maybe that looks like a trash can, like
Okay.
something like that. So people who have extra luggage and don't want to pay for it, maybe put their clothes instead of going to the trash, put them in these bins, and then we could give them like a second use, maybe donating to shelters or even selling it.
Okay.
So how viable do you think this idea is?
I think it's viable, but financially, I don't know how viable it is. And also, who will you have staffing these containers? Like, who will be working to take the clothing? Also, like, you need to have relationships with the airports and the governments to be like, oh, it's okay. And things with airports can get a little tricky about, how do I say, the regulations and the rules about like what's acceptable, what's okay. In the US it would be like super strict, right? So like, but if it gets big, then you could even contact the people that you saw that had this idea in LA, no?
Yeah.
So where you saw, but I know that all over the world there's that yellow bin that you pull down in random places. Like I lived in South Korea, they had one there. It was not why, but it's like a thing where you pull down and you put your clothes that you wish to donate in random neighborhoods and random places. So airport, good idea, but I don't know the frequency of people that carry things that are overweight. I guess I've flown a fair amount, and I have been that person who's like, oh my gosh, what do I do? But I get smart and I move my things,
Yeah.
or I put it in a bag and then I lie to the people at the gate and I somehow get through, right? So I don't know how frequently will it, like, vale la pena, no sé.
Okay.
Like I don't know how frequently those people will be.
Okay. What resources do you think are essential?
More so than resources, you want to serve as a point of reception of unnecessary clothing, right? So let's say that we take you out of the airport and we put you in some other place, like where's another place though that could be, you basically want to take secondhand, and the thing is if you do airport, then you probably collect nicer products, right? It's people that can afford to fly, you're gonna have nicer brands, things like that. What was the question? Sorry.
What resources do you think are essential?
Resources, people.
Okay.
So first you need people to physically be there to take the clothing, but you also need the alliances and the support of the airport, of the security at the airport, things like that, right?
Okay. Yeah. What do you think are the main challenges that we're gonna face?
The consistency of customers. And when I say customers, they're not paying you, but they're doing their products.
Yeah.
But also, after you have the clothing, how will you make make the money or the resources to fulfill the needs, right?
Okay.
So is your plan to resell them? Is your plan to donate? Donating is very nice, but you want a model where you're receiving the money,
Yeah.
more the money than what you're spending to make this happen,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. How do you think we would get the resources or the sponsors for this?
Contacts in the aeronautical industry, even if you were to contact like a local, like a Mexican airline, like who's the really good one? Volaris. I'm kidding, they're a really bad one. But
Yeah.
like, but if you have a partnership of an airline that's Mexican and they work with you, like yes, we will collect it on like Mondays and Wednesdays, or because it does give their staff an extra thing to do. But you need also the security of the Mexican airports to be on your side, right? To allow it to happen.
Yeah.
So I think navigating the regulations will be probably the biggest challenge.
Yeah.
And you can't really be standing at the airport like every day waiting on. They're gonna be like, I'm sorry, who are you? Why are you here every day?
Yeah.
And if it's a business, then they're gonna be like, do you have permits? Like, I think for me, the majority of my questions are the regulations and the legalities of you guys physically being at the airport.
Okay. And what changes would you make to this idea?
I love the idea because we use so much clothes and we throw them away. I would think outside of the airport.
Okay.
But then what you do with the raw material when you have it, that's something that you would have to like decide. Will you be selling it? Will you be, some people, I mean like Adidas is making new sneakers out of recycled plastic.
Yeah.
Could you do something like that? Is there any way that you could take the product that you obtain, not in the airport, but somewhere outside of the airport, but then also you're making a product like the Hikaras, but you're turning the clothing into something that you could sell,
Okay.
because you could be getting free material to make something else,
Okay.
but I don't know what exactly, right?
Okay.
But that could be something to investigate.
Okay. So to wrap this all up, what advice do you have for us to go on with these ideas that we have?
I love that you're looking for sustainable, like to improve the ambient, because of course global warming and things about the climate are super important,
Yeah.
and that's the problems today. So keep thinking in that direction. I do really like that your plan is to use something that already exists and how to put it to use for something else.
Okay.
So clothing is a very interesting thing, even to be redistributed. I feel like I've heard of a business model, I don't know where in the world, but there's a place in the world that basically gets donations, and then you as a customer, you can buy parcels of clothes,
Okay.
and like people get really cool things with like weird like Russian, like
Yeah.
you could get like things from all over the world,
Okay.
and it's not, but it has to be acceptable to like resell, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like a thrift shop, but it's from another part of the world. But here a lot of the clothing like comes from the States or comes from. So I don't know. I love the idea that you want to use materials that already exist to make something else. The hikaras, I don't know. You would have to define your market, but I do like the idea also of the recycling plastic because that's already in action.
Okay. And from the 3 ideas that we presented to you, which one do you like the most?
I think the most viable would be the one for the recycling of plastic.
Okay.
But I do like the one about the clothing, but probably I would take it out of the airport because of the regulations, but have a better plan of what would you do with the clothing once you have it, but whatever you do with it needs to make some kind of money to pay what you're spending for the people who are working,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.